Mexico City. From inside a tall building, a portal-like device built into the far wall opposite of the enormous window rested within a laboratory. Within that laboratory, standing in front of the portal, was Arnold Agreste, wearing an all-black suit with a blue tie with his hands placed behind his back. Finally, the world would know my name, the man said, spreading his arms out and praising the device before him. A sudden whirling noise echoed from outside as the windows and the floors began to vibrate intensely. Arnold lowered his arms to his sides as he turned around. Bursting through the windows was a large spherical shell, causing the glass to fly almost everywhere, and Arnold to shield his face with his arms. The object rode circles around the man before stopping in front of a hulking, broad-shouldered alien covered in a natural red armor plating on his back, shoulders, and the backs of his arms. He was mostly white, with black on his upper half. Each hand of his possessed claws, having sharp, jagged teeth. Caesar, or should I say, Wrecking Ball, Arnold commented, stepping on the shattered glass. Cannonball, the alien corrected. Nonetheless, amazing entrance, Arnold replied, clapping sarcastically. But you do know how much collateral damage you just caused. Cannonball smirked. I bought it before I broke it. Arnold nodded. Clever boy. Always one step ahead. But let me ask you this. Why are you here? The man questioned. I'm here to talk to you man to man, Cannonball stated before transforming into his human form. Caesar stood there wearing a black long-sleeve undershirt under a white shirt with gray sleeves that formed an hourglass symbol, a belt that displayed the number 10 printed on the buckle that rested on his waist with pouches, and red pants with black boots and red trimming on them. Arnold crossed his arms. You want to talk like men after you just knocked down my front door? You want some tea, too? He asked sarcastically. I mean, if you're offering, Caesar replied. You stole one too many things of mine, and I want them back, Arno. Your plan stops now. I honestly haven't thought about killing you lately. Yet, that is. I have enemies other than you, the man stated. But here you are, he added with a maniacal smile. The man's suit began to leak as black substance, causing Caesar to take a step back. The unknown goop covered Arnold's body from his head to his toes in an organic mechanical substance which hardened into a slim, durable armor with light blue-colored lines going over it that resembled circuitry. Just then, a green humanoid alien, a plumber, named Khan, who aided Caesar in this mission, flew in through the window and landed next to Caesar on his right as a black smoke appeared on his left of the young man. The mist formed into a human with Yuri standing in his place. So I got good news and good news, Caesar said. Good news, Arnold didn't take the nanosec. Other good news, we found him. Here's some news. How about you don't rush in before us, Yuri stated. I agree with Yuri. It would be wise if we headed in as a unit, Khan said. Oh, you brought friends. Well, what a coincidence, Arnold stated. The armor around his right hand retracted backwards, and with the snap of his finger, the portal behind him instantly activated. So did I, as enormous blue robots began wheeling out into the laboratory. They had a round waist and a circular head, with long arms and claws, which appeared to have a blue glow surrounding them. Caesar smiled, activating the multitricks. Let's get this party started. He transformed into an alien with a magnetically floating metal head, which levitated in an arch between his shoulders. He had crab-like claws for hands, and his body was mainly black, with yellow feet, hands, shoulders, and chest, with the yellow eyebrow-like crest on his forehead and lines beneath his mouth. Magnatech! The creature shouted his name as a form of a battle cry. Magnatech began running straight towards Arno. Wherever his floating head traveled, his body followed. As Arno hovered in the air, moving closer to the heroes with his fleet of robots, Yuri and Khan raced towards the action as well. Magnetak used his magnetic abilities to lift up a robot and let go, causing it to slam into another. Khan flew around, phasing through the robots, disrupting the circuitry within them, making them shut down, as Juri opened the satchel of her wrist, taking out her spellbook and flipped through the pages. With the wave of her hand, as ancient words slipped through her mouth, portals began to open, sucking the robots into them before disappearing into an unknown location. Rushing towards each other, Magnetak and Arno were at the ready with their attacks. The magnetic alien caused Arno's suit to uncontrollably fly backwards towards the wall behind him, as Arno released 2 miniature missiles, one from each of his wrists. As Arno's back slammed into the wall behind him, creating a small crater on the vertical surface, Magnetak was thrown back by the force of the projectiles landing in front of him, which also caused the floor to rumble. Running through the smoke and debris on the floor, Magnetak deflected another missile from Arno's suit before launching a robot into the air, causing it to get hit with a projectile that attached itself to his body. Looking down at his chest, he struggled to grab his crab-like claws to pull the device off, but the way the creature's hand was made caused the action to become more difficult as his grip kept slipping. The object began to beat rapidly before exploding into Magnetak's face at a point-blank range. I can't. Caesar! Yuri shouted with worry as she used a spell to make one of the robots dismantle itself. Khan, who tossed aside one machine-like disc across the laboratory, fluttered in the air and pointed up at the ceiling. There! While Magnetak's body aimlessly walked around, his head was stuck in a small crater in the ceiling. You should quit while I'm ahead, the hero joked. Arnold landed on the floor, aiming his palms at the alien's body, while he looked up at his severed head. No? Alright then, Magnetak stated. A bright red flash was noticed, and out of the debris and smoke stepped out Caesar in another form. A silicon-based alien made out of extremely durable crystal stepped out onto the battlefield. His body was purple, with several dark lines and spots. His hands and face were a crimson red, along with the 6 shards on his back, the other 2 on his chest and 1 on the top of his head that resembled a horn with black and white hourglass symbol on his chest. Power Surge! His face consisting of a mouth and 1 large yellow eye in the center. Both the hero and villain instantly flew into the air. Power Surge landed a right hook across Arnold's helmet before the suited man returned the favor by punching the alien as well, causing tiny pieces of his cheek to break off. Grabbing each other's hands and preventing one another to attack, the 2 struggled in the air, pushing their weight up against one another, while Khan phased through the robots, heading towards the portal, looking for an off switch. Arnold then kneed Caesar in the stomach before letting go and throwing him aside. Power Surge, still in the air, placed his hand on the wall before he could hit the surface, then soared straight up towards Arnold. The villain lifted both of his palms up, aiming at the purple creature, letting out a beam of blue energy. Power Surge felt the beam hit him, but he continued to fly, targeting Arnold at full speed. Arnold then stopped, noticing his attack wasn't working. Power Surge announced as he absorbed each ounce of energy Arnold had thrown at him. With the clench of his fist, Power Surge stored the energy in his right hand, then punched Arnold down into the floor below. Floating above him, Power Surge watched as Arnold got on one knee and effortlessly began to stand up. Is that the best you got? The man tented. Power Surge lifted his hand up, aiming his palm at the man below. That one-liner the best you got? He replied. The jets of Arnold's suit all of a sudden boosted him up into the air. Before Caesar could react, he was punched in the torso and sent flying, hitting the ceiling and landing on the floor. Power Surge groaned, pushing himself up on all fours. I've been hit harder. Arnold chuckled. Oh, I'm sure you have, he said, looking around at Yuri repeatedly conjuring spells, and Khan projecting beams from his eyes, preventing any more robots to come through the portal. Caesar, Caesar, Caesar. You're so quick to be a hero. That's exactly something I didn't entirely hate about you, the man stated. So do what you do best. be the hero. Popping up from his armor, there were two shoulder cannons. Projectiles shot out of the armor, flew across the laboratory out of the broken window, and targeted an office building across the street, causing the top floors to go up in a fiery explosion. Reverting back to his human form, Cesar got up, watching Arnold fly out of the window. He raced towards the broken window, then stopped near the edge, seeing the burning building across the street as a crowd formed below and emergency services rushed in. "Guys!" Cesar shouted as Yuri shrunk a couple of robots before stepping on them, while Khan worked on closing the portal. "Go! We got this!" Yuri replied before running towards the remaining machines. The tall office building began to crumble as the fire spewed from the windows, causing the smoke to rise and encompass the atmosphere. The police and firefighters did their best, getting the civilians out of the way from the building, while paramedics helped the injured. The flames had gotten even more intense and violent, while the crowd on the streets looked up at the fiery inferno. Cesar took a few steps back before rushing at the window and leaping out without hesitation, as the Multitrix instantly cycled through its selections and activated itself. Letting gravity take his body, Cesar slapped his watch down. His body shifted, while the nanotechnology within his watch absorbed his clothing and started rewriting his DNA into another, a magma-based life form, whose body was composed of a bright yellow inner magma covered by dark red rocks with two volcanoes on his shoulders, and having two toes. Spewing a burst of flames from his hands, the alien boosted himself up, giving himself the ability to fly. He glided before stopping himself and sliding down the side of the building with his back against the hard exterior. The chunk of the wall from the building lifted up underneath him, causing a small chunk of the cement under him hover into the air by the flames it had generated. The police watched as an alien flew into the air with the board beneath him. Pyroflare hovered underneath a platform that was being held up by the two crumbling columns. He lifted his hands, holding the platform of the building up as much as he could, then slowly slid his right hand away, pointing it at the column to his side, now struggling to keep the platform up with one hand. Pyroflare put his index and middle finger together, pointing at the column to his right before shooting a beam of heat from both fingers. The heat melted the rocks of the column together. The alien then switched hands, doing the same with the column to his left. With the support system of the platform stabilizing, he then flew in the front of the building and hovered up, beginning to absorb the flames that roared through the windows of the office complex. Once that was done, Pyroflare on his hoverboard looked around at the emergency forces down below, with the civilians giving him a thumbs up as some cheered and others scolded. Pyroflare looked up, seeing Arnold's suit a few miles away in the air, flying away. The magma-based alien propelled himself into the air with the flames that burst from his hands and feet, allowing him to fly into the air like a rocket. Pyroflare began to gain speed on Arnold, but it wasn't enough. "Not gonna win this one today, unless I get some help." With only a thought, Cesar's body transformed from fiery to flight, a red humanoid manta ray-based alien with yellow wing flaps and horns. He had two black lightning marks trailing from his back to his chest, where the Multitrix watch symbol was located. With 3 fingers on each hand and 3 toes on both feet, he now also possessed a tail. "From Stingray," he added. Flapping his wings once was enough force to blast the creature forward with a straight shot towards Arnold. Stingray shifted his body into the air with his feet reaching out at Arnold with only a few inches between them. The watch symbol on his chest suddenly beeped a few times before Stingray turned back into Cesar, who then began falling towards the ground below. "No!" the young man shouted, watching Arnold fly further away as he plummeted down to earth. Come on, come on!" Cesar pleaded, trying to activate his watch that timed out due to the multiple quick transformations. The more he fell, Cesar started to shift from consciousness to unconsciousness, from the air that rushed from and through his body. As his eyes rolled to the back of his head and his eyelids closed, Cesar unwillingly submitted to the unconsciousness, then fell towards the ground like a rag doll. Right before he could hit the ground, just a few feet from the concrete, Khan grabbed the hero, then floated down before landing in a patch of grass.